Thanks for listening and subscribing to episode 223 of the Clive Barker podcast, the only podcast dedicated to the imagination of Clive Barker. In this episode, we catch up on a little news, including some Clive Barker art available at a convention, a collector's edition of Sacrament, an update on our interview book, and Jose had a phone call with Clive. This plus new round of Duels of Blood, and we talk about the new movie with Nicholas Vince, Book of Monsters. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination shop is dedicated to benefiting the Arts and Medicine program at Texas Children's Cancer Center. Up to 50% of the proceeds will support this program, where artist Don Bertram volunteers monthly. Don Bertram has a new announcement. He said, along with reading of The Chimney Sweep's Tale next Saturday, April 20th, I will also have 20 to 30 new original oil paintings on display. Bring your family and friends. A great time is guaranteed for all. We will be at the gallery most of the afternoon, so be sure to make plans to come and see us. The event is being made possible by Windsong Creations and Simply Fine Art Studio that is at 3820 East Broadway, Pearland, Texas. If you live in Texas, go check out Don Bertram's art. Meet him in person. He's a big fan of Clive's and a friend of Clive's. He's been a long-time supporter of Clive Barker's art, in addition to being a great artist in his own right. And when you buy his art, the proceeds go to the Texas Children's Cancer Center. We just put up a new feature video that shows Don working with the kids at Texas Children's Cancer Center and his artwork. So if you click on the side banner at clivebarkercast.com, you can find a link to that video, as well as his Etsy shop where you can buy his prints and support this program, especially for people who don't live in Texas. Okay, so welcome. This is episode 223 of the Clive Barker podcast, and I'm Ryan.
And I'm Joe.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Dave.
Yeah, it's good to have you guys back, and David, you haven't been on here in a while.
Yeah, it's been quite some time. Been pretty busy with family, school, and my other podcasts, and just life in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your other podcast is Cinema Bluster, right? And your website is horror-underground.com.
Yep, where we I update it every so often.
And I think the last episode you guys put up talks about Jordan Peele's Us, so that's a good recommendation there to go listen to Cinema Bluster.
Yeah. Especially if you liked Us, you should check out the movie Border, because we kind of compare those two, and I think Border's kind of going ignored because it's a foreign film in the U.S. market, but it's tremendous.
Is that a movie that came out a few years ago that had like a couple running away from monsters or something that are invading their country?
No. This is a Scandinavian film. Came out last year. It was actually Oscar nominated for Best Special Effects Makeup. It should have won it, but it should have also been nominated for Best Foreign Feature, in my opinion. But it's kind of a fairy tale. It's hard to describe without giving too much away. We get into a little bit of a spoiler on our podcast, but nothing too great. But it's one of those ones that you kind of want to know very little about, but it's kind of an excellent pairing with Us. They have very similar themes.
Cool.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. It's a good recommendation here to go watch Borders.
Yeah, I haven't seen either one. That sounds really good.
Yeah. We got some news to talk about today. Not a lot, but some interesting stuff, and some stuff about the Kickstarter, right, Ryan?
Yeah. So I guess to start out with, Gauntlet Press had some their numbered editions of Sacrament have arrived, so they'll start shipping them out to people. That was an expensive edition.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't order that. But what is that?
300 for the signed letter tray case.
Yeah.
But you could go as cheap as $75 if you don't want to get the slipcase.
Oh, okay.
Nice. It's got bonus material. I see here. I'm looking at it. It starts at 35, but then you have that deluxe, at 300. So that's one of those things that we see a lot of this nowadays. People buying deluxe editions as kind of not just as super fans want to keep that in their shelves, but also because some people out there think that this is a good investment to sell down the line. Which I hope they're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to get more of those Clive Barker movies made, right?
Yeah. And I remember seeing the other day, I was looking at, I think it was Occupy Midian or was one of those groups on Facebook about Clive Barker, and someone was asking, how much should I sell the Cabal, annotated Cabal from Fiddle Black? And people were throwing these like outrageous numbers. I mean, the book itself was $40 at the time.
Yeah.
But someone was saying, oh, you should put it for no less than $200. And I've seen things go for like $300. And I'm like, wow, that is interesting. I wish I could have bought duplicates at the time.
Yeah. That was only like, 3 years ago that came out?
Yeah. Fiddle Black.
4 years ago? Right.
And so this Sacrament edition has bonus materials, right? So I don't know exactly what bonus material it is. It says it has a Richard Christian Matheson introduction, and what else does it have?
Which is interesting. I didn't know that Richard Matheson's son was a horror author.
Yeah. Oh, so it's his son. Okay.
Yeah.
And it says here that it will have cover and interior art by Clive Barker, and there will be some massive bonus material pages from the handwritten first draft and handwritten corrected pages from the typed first draft, among others. So that's good. You always get to see a little bit about the process and how it goes through revisions and changes. So that's always interesting to know if there were any major changes in certain sections and stuff like that. And Ryan, the Weave World 25th Anniversary Edition had some bonus material too, right?
Yeah. That was a great edition. It's got a good. It's got a really nice. It's got the manuscript of the children's book version of Weave World that Clive wrote first that was rejected by publishers.
Uh-huh.
Oh, really?
And Scarlet Gospels also came out in a massive, deluxe edition with some bonus materials in there. So it seems like this is the equivalent of the Blu-ray bonus materials. Now books also have bonus materials. Deleted scenes.
Yeah, I guess now that the Blu-ray and DVD market's kind of shrinking, that this is the way of making up for that, right?
Yeah, I guess.
And they've got at the bottom here, sorry, PayPal cannot be used for the lettered edition. I wonder if people somehow can use PayPal to like buy a book and then give themselves a refund, or if there's some,
I don't know.
Well, there's always a certain process of arbitration if you do a chargeback, right? I mean, they have to contact the seller first and make sure that, and if they send you with the tracking and stuff, they can easily prove that they sent you the book.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and then next up, if you're going to Horrorcon UK in May, then you'll get to see Russell Charrington's art collection, which is also for sale. So, a whole bunch of original autographed Clive Barker stuff, personalized, and that's I think May 11th and the weekend of May 11th and 12th in Sheffield.
Oh, that's going to be interesting. I know that Russell has done several exhibits for Clive Barker. I think the last one was called Hybrid. Was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And the poster for this exhibit is actually the original art for that mask that ended up being produced. Remember the mask that has two faces, one in the front, one in the back?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I think it's still available on Amazon, that particular mask. It's a really cool Halloween, decoration, mask, that you can use.
And the poster says Clive Barker, The Art of Horror, Horrorcon UK presents Something Wicked in Sheffield, May 11th through 12th. So if you're in the area, it might be a good way to get some Clive Barker art.
Yeah.
Just look at it if money is tight.
Yeah.
That would be me.
I'm sure they'll go for a few $1,000s, and this is going to be for major super fans. Or the mask that I was talking, I think, is called "It's Behind You." The one that has the two faces, one in the front, one in the back.
Was that like 2010 or 2011 when those came out?
Let's see. I actually am looking at the Amazon page.
I had the sea monster looking one.
Right. Oh, you did? Oh, yeah. Cool. Yeah. The one that comes with a shirt too, right? That one?
Yep.
Yeah.
I wore that to the Board of Realtors Halloween party that year.
I think that came out in 2014, but I'm not sure.
I thought it was earlier than that.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm just looking at the Amazon listing. It says date first listed on Amazon, January 22nd, 2014. So, but I think you're right. I think this may be earlier than that. Yep. Well,
and then the only other news we have is kind of cheating because it's news from us, but our if anybody out there thinks that we're not, that we gave up on our book, we did not. We're still working hard on it. It's just that this it's a real slog doing the transcribing of the interviews. But we've gotten a majority of them done. We only have a few left. One issue is that we did have a lot of people that promised to transcribe the interviews for us, and then they so we reserved those for them, and we didn't work on those particular interviews, and then we don't hear back from them, so we don't know if they're working on them or not. And
yeah, but you made an announcement on Kickstarter. You made an update on our former Kickstarter there, and so you gave people a reminder, and you kind of asked the people who were working on it if they could get in touch with us. And I know some people are in the hospital, other people, life gets in the way.
Yep. Well, and special shout out to Raul, because he has done 2 already, and he's starting on his 3rd.
All right.
So he's been a huge help.
Absolutely. Thank you, Raul.
Yeah. So that I'm excited to have all those done, because then we can start working on formatting and editing and get this thing off to the printers. Yeah, and we're going to do a hardcover, and it's so far we did announce that it's going to have a Clive Barker cover, art cover. So we're still checking on that now that the former people who used to work with Clive Barker are no longer there. So now we have to make sure that everything is in place for us to make that cover. So and if I can just add a little bit of news here that's kind of a big deal, is that we did get in touch with Clive Barker recently, and Clive has gotten in touch with us thanks to Phil and Sarah Stokes from Revelations, and it was an interesting phone call, and we got to talk to Clive, and he told us that he knows about our podcast, and he hears very good things about it from Phil and Sarah, and he also heard some of it, so that's a really that's rewarding to hear that Clive Barker has listened to our podcast, or at least has heard about it. And there might be some interesting things coming down the chute for this year, hopefully, and we will let you guys know more updates as we hear from them. Exciting things maybe coming in the future. And so then if we head over to the Duels of Blood, www.duelsofblood.com. As we're recording this, the new round should be started. Of course, the voting should have started now already. Of course, I'm having trouble with it. My cache doesn't want to let go of the old. I got the page open right here. It's the Volume 4 Round 3 results, and the voting ended on April 12th, and there were a lot of votes. This round had a lot of votes, and I'm pretty impressed. In one of those. They were all hundreds of votes on each round. It was crazy. Yeah. So with Otis and Clay versus Devilude, we had Devilude won on that one. So Otis and Clay, sorry, they're out. Even though they were double teaming, they still lost. Yeah.
Lude continued to make a mess of things.
Yeah, right. Vasti Moses versus Slaughter, and this was a little closer, but still. I mean, I kind of like the Berserkers, and I had one person message me saying he was trying really hard to get the Berserkers to win, and they still didn't make it.
Yeah, Vasti Moses is just such a great makeup design. I mean, it's a full body suit. It's weird. It's just crazy. I mean, it's in the cover of the Nightbreed Chronicles just because it's such a striking design for a monster, right? It's pretty amazing. So I understand how he won against Slaughter, and but the Berserkers are doing really well so far. They've been going through a lot of rounds.
And then we've got Cabal versus Rachel. This one was really surprising to me. I thought for sure that Cabal was going to win this one, but he didn't even. She beat him by double.
Yeah.
Rachel had 71% of the votes, and Cabal only had 29%.
Do you think there might be some saturation with Cabal, that people are like, okay, yes, it's Boone, we know, and,
Yeah,
maybe that's
different.
Cabal is not the deep cut vote, I guess. Maybe that's too obvious.
Because at this point, hasn't Cabal been in pretty much all of the different volumes of the book Duels of Blood? I think he was in the first one. Except for the one that was just Hellraiser Cenobites, right?
Yeah.
We had one that was totally just Hellraiser.
This is only the fourth one, so we had one that had a mix of everything.
Yeah.
And then we had one that was all Hellraiser. Mm-hmm. And was one all comic book characters, I think.
Yeah. So Rachel, she's really a cool character, she can turn into mist, and she delivers a lot of exposition in Nightbreed, and of course she's Babette's mother, and as such I think that she's one of the major characters of Nightbreed, so I'm not surprised to see her take this one. I think the Cabal got a little saturated. People got a little tired of Cabal, maybe.
Oh, it was actually book characters. Volume.
Clive Barker Universe.
Yeah, Volume 2 was all book characters, which I don't know why we agreed to do that. That's so hard to find pictures for all those. But
yeah, a lot of characters don't even have pictures except for the comic book adaptations, right?
Yeah.
But
that was fun. So I think Cabal has been in Volume 1, and then now again on Volume 4. And so then we've got. Who was after that?
Shuna Sassy versus Babette.
Yeah, and that's another one. I could not have predicted that Babette would win that.
Maybe a little oversaturation with her too,
They both, well, maybe, and they both have kind of an equal amount of lines in the movie, depending on what version you watch.
Yeah, and it's Rachel and Babette are a very striking duo in the movie, and of course, again, Babette does the psychic link with Laurie, and when the Midian Unmade book was done, everybody was submitting stories about Babette, so she's a very popular character.
Yeah, well, I think from that point of view, it's kind of like, well, she was the child, so it's like, what would it be like when she grew up? It was kind of an easy route to go, I guess, when you're writing.
Did you guys vote on this round? Who did you vote for?
I voted for Shuna Sassy.
Yeah.
But
I did a mix of those two. Whenever I wanted to see the results, I didn't know which one to pick, so I just picked randomly. I went for underdogs sometimes on these two.
Yeah, that's kind of how I tend to vote with this, is to go for the underdog.
Yeah, which there was a huge underdog in the next one, the Fabilu family versus Kinski.
Yeah. But I only tend to vote once around, so I think usually I'm set to lose whoever I vote for.
Same here. And it seems like you were talking about Otis and Clay being a double team, and this one we had a triple team. And they lost against Kinski, which is understandable. I mean, Kinski is such a cool character. He's the Mactonite of Nightbreed, and the Fabilu family. It's insane how they got included into the Nightbreed Chronicles because they only appear for like a few seconds in the whole film. It's just a one throwaway shot where the little kid is looking out, and that's it. And they still made it into the book. They're the family that ages backwards.
Mm-hmm. And then, well, and there's a lot of Nightbreed characters that are like that you want to learn more about just because you only see them for 1 second in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then we've got Narcisse versus Kushner Day, which was way closer than I would have expected. Kushner Day.
Right on.
Yeah, I thought he would be more of an underdog.
Oh, I want to bring something up here. It's that, have you noticed on Occupy Midden, there's this amazing member there who's tattooing their scalp to look like Narcisse?
No.
Yeah, I did see that.
It's amazing. It's amazing the work that she's doing. It's crazy. Like I was looking at that picture and I was like, that's amazing. So they've been tattooing their scalp to look like they have the exposed skull underneath, or whatever. And it's just so cool to see that being actually tattooed onto someone. It's really, really cool. I don't have the name here right now because I forgot to get that on my notes. But kudos to you for doing that. That is something else. That is amazing how people get so into Nightbreed to the point that they tattoo it on their own skin,
I don't know very much about tattoos, but will their hair grow back over the top of that?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You can tattoo your scalp, and then if you grow your hair, you won't be able to see it. But yes, it doesn't destroy your hair follicles, I think.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Okay, that's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It looks good. Yes. Yeah.
So, and Narcisse won that with 65% of the votes. So not a bad turnout for Kushner Day, who doesn't talk. He just drums on the wall.
Yeah. Yep. Narcisse won. Again, could see this coming a mile away, but I'm interested in seeing which one of these will be the winner at the end, because at this point, Cabal is out, and other major characters are out, like Lori, which we'll get to. But so hey, maybe it's going to be Kinski, maybe it's going to be Babette. Who knows?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Then we've got Mezek Mool versus Ghost. and Mezek Mool won again, so all the berserkers are out.
Knocked them all out.
Yeah.
Talk about underdog, though. I mean,
no, that's really a big underdog.
Yeah, yeah, I know. But he sort of I think I said this last time, so sorry, but I think he kind of represents the start of the Occupy Midian and the idea that, hey, maybe we will get a new release of Nightbreed with the footage that was left out, and that was the first footage that we ever saw that was bonus.
For almost 25 years, the only way you could see this character was in the Nightbreed Chronicles in one picture. So yeah. I'm really astonished that he beat Ghost.
Yeah, a character that was in the theatrical cut of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got Lori versus Onaka. So and this is the comic book Lori that could raise the dead by playing her guitar. So of course Onaka won, and there's one reason is that Lori is the comic book version and not the movie version, but also I mean, I think we know another big reason why.
Another Lori that really loves Simon Bamford, and Lori Bichet from Simon Bamford fans. I hope you still have your index finger working all right, because that was a lot of clicks. That was 1,014 votes on Onaka. So maybe Onaka is going to win this whole thing.
Yeah,
like more than double any other character, right?
Yes. More than double some of the entire duels that we have here. That is pretty impressive, and I think that we know who's going to win this Duels of Blood if things go the way they are. But so what's going to be next?
Well, and so if you click on round 4, which is the new front page, the voting is supposed to be up right now, but I can't. I can't
It's
vote.
not working for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go in and look at them again. But it was supposed to be 8 a.m. Alaska time, that's 30 minutes ago. The voting was supposed to start. I plan to have this fixed by the time this episode goes out. So I don't know why you can't vote yet. But we've got.
They look very.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say this looks like a very challenging round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing that I did to sort of stop what happened last time is I changed how often you can vote from every 5 minutes. Now it's every 12 hours. Which I had to do a bunch of math on that because they only put how many seconds. So I had to, how many seconds are in 12 hours?
Wow.
I had to type that in.
Okay.
But then, I think that also is giving certain people a break who who feel obligated to vote every 5 minutes and lose sleep and stuff.
Yeah. 12 hours, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting to see how that's going to change.
Yeah.
Hey, if anybody wants to complain about changing the rules, complain to Ryan.
Yes.
he's the one who changed it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I was seeing is that if we left it the way it was, that Onaka would just go through and win the whole thing, by a huge margin.
I understand.
Yeah. So this way, if we promote this and get a lot of people voting, then we'll see who wins. If you can actually vote.
Yeah.
You might just lock out everyone.
Yeah.
You know what? I just thought of something. Maybe it's waiting until 12 hours from 8 o'clock to allow the first vote to come in. I don't know.
Maybe.
That's just, maybe. You have to check that. But so we got four duels here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so starting out, we've got Onaka versus Devil Lude, which I think if it weren't for Laurie and Simon Bamford fans, I wouldn't know who was going to win this one.
Exactly.
Because they're both cool characters. And then we've got Babette versus Mezek Mool. Probably Babette.
Yeah,
but then,
that's what I would say.
But then for all those people that go, no, I'm going to go for the deep cut, then maybe it would be Mezek Mool again.
Yeah, Mezek Mool's been kind of the Cinderella team of the tournament, if you want to say that. So they could surprise.
Yeah.
He's more like the pumpkin carriage of Cinderella. It's just so big. He's like a freaking tank in Midian. I just want to know, what do they feed this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not intelligent, right? He's just like a monster that Deodara rides on.
Yeah. Maybe he just tunnels around underground and just, because we never really got any backstory on these, right? I mean, I would just love to have more backstory on some of these characters. It's just that the movie was edited to be 90 minutes in the theatrical cut, and some of these characters, like we were talking, they were just reduced to a brief 1-2 second appearances.
Yeah.
And there's just so many monsters in this movie. It's crazy.
And then Narcisse versus Vasti Moses. I think
Narcisse.
It's got to be Narcisse.
Yeah, but who knows?
I'm voting for the underdog.
Yeah. And Kinski versus Rachel. I don't know. I don't know which one would win.
That's a tough one now. I'll admit. Yeah, that's a...
They both are side characters that have a decent amount of screen time and lines.
Yeah. So Nicholas Vince fans, start clicking. You can vote once every 12 hours.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about Nicholas Vince in a bit again, but so moon-shaped guy or misty lady?
Yeah.
It just hit me that the only one of these characters that I don't know the name of the actor who played it is Devil Lude. And for some reason, I never really looked it up. It's I guess I just want to believe that it's an actual demon, you know?
That's a good point.
It is convincing makeup, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially those horns.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we've got a mother and daughter that are still in the running, also, with Rachel and Babette.
Yeah, and we want to thank our sponsor. It's Celebrate Imagination by Don Bertram, and he supports, the cancer treatments for kids in the Dallas Hospital. Is that correct, Ryan?
Texas Children's Cancer Center.
There we go. Thank you.
And yeah, so that's round 4, and hopefully I'll have it fixed so you can vote by the time this episode goes up today. And then, so then we all watched a movie that has Nicholas Vince in it, and you can see it. It's called Book of Monsters, and you can see it on Amazon Prime. That's where I saw it, and I think David, you saw it on a screener, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and
a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
And I think, well, you can also order Blu-rays, which, in hindsight, maybe I might have done that instead, because I had some audio issues with Amazon.
Yeah, I had that too. The noise of the soundtrack seemed to be it didn't seem to be balanced correctly in the Amazon Prime video that I saw, because sometimes the music was really loud, but the dialogue was low, and then other times it seemed like the whole volume would just go down. And I was watching it with the volume on my TV up to 50.
and that happened for me, like, after the first half of the movie. Like, the first half was fine, and then once you got into about the second half of the movie, I had to turn the subtitles on, and I had to really strain to be able to hear what they were saying.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe that was if they had some sort of error when they uploaded it to Amazon with the compression.
Yeah,
Probably.
Like I told you guys, I had watched it the screener through Vimeo, and I did not have any problems with the volume dropping out. But I know weird things can happen to compression when that stuff's being uploaded. So who knows?
like when Mona was talking to the German exchange student outside, I couldn't hear any of that stuff they were saying.
Wow. Yeah, I can reach out to my contact at Dread Central and let them know, just so they're aware of it.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, we've seen this before, where when we did our episode with the Dark Ditties, with the interview with Gary Smart from Dark Ditties, people were putting negative reviews based on that they couldn't hear. And it was something with it was kind of their problem, because nobody else had that issue. But it affects the reviews, and that's not fair.
Yeah.
So this was directed by Stuart Spark, who I think is kind of a sophomore director. I think he had another movie before this one, which I haven't had a chance to watch.
The Creature Below.
Did you get a chance to watch that one?
Yeah, I saw that a few years ago when it came out. It's a fun micro-budget take on Lovecraftian story. It's kind of reminiscent of like Stuart Gordon stuff, but on a much smaller budget and scale.
Oh yeah, that's great that you bring up Stuart Gordon, and it seems like he really Stuart Sparks seems to have a real interest in Lovecraftian legend and monsters, right? I mean, that's what I got out of this movie too, the Book of Monsters, because the Book of Monsters is kind of like a Necronomicon of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering that, because at first I thought that all you have to do is open it and turn the pages, and these monsters show up, but it seemed like by the end it was kind of like, no, they pretty much just show up whenever they feel like it.
Yeah, I think they were summoned by the I can't remember the name, the deity.
That demon seductress that shows up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She's like a succubus type character.
Pandora, I think. Was it? Yeah, that turns into that weird looking monster thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it opens up with a scene where there's this little girl, and she grabs a book and she's going to read it under the sheets, and then the mom appears and it's like, oh, what do you got there? Oh, it's that book. Okay, well, let's read you a story. And I'm like, that doesn't seem like the book you would read a bedtime story from at all.
Yeah,
It looks like something would be locked underneath the church basement in Britain or something.
Yeah. And then, of course, Nicholas Vince plays the dad.
Who is totally clueless.
Yeah. And I was like, well, this guy should know a lot more about what's going on than he lets on throughout the entire film.
So his mother was a secret monster hunter, and she was reading. This is what I got out of it: that she was reading this book to her daughter to sort of teach her all of the weak spots of these monsters, so that she'll be able to take over and fight them. When she's an adult.
And when you think about it, that is clever in and of itself, because it's not like you telling your kid, oh, monsters exist and here's what we need to do. Because usually when you do that in a movie, everyone thinks you're crazy. So I think it's fun that it's kind of like, let's read this super scary bedtime story.
It was a little video gamey in the sense that whenever you play a game where you have to kill a monster, then there's always the weak spots that you have to hit, and it's and in this one it also does that trope where it's like, well, this is a weak spot, and it's literally a spot.
It's like
on the back of the monster,
like a big pulsating
bubble,
spot.
Yeah, which seems like but anyway, so Book of Monsters, very Lovecraftian. The monsters are well done for the most part. I like the designs of the monsters.
Yeah.
When it comes to the production value, I think that this movie had a budget of estimated $76,000.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say dollars or Great Britain pounds, because there's a big difference between them both. I think it's dollars on IMDb that they say. So they did a really good job with the budget that they had.
Yeah, and I liked the acting, particularly the actress that played Mona, the redheaded friend.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she did pretty good.
She's almost like a British Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah.
She looked like.
And the good part of Lindsay Lohan when she was doing good movies.
Yeah, that actress, she's actually the star of their previous film, The Creature Below.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that the main protagonist seemed like she didn't really emote a lot throughout the movie.
Yeah, Sophie. She seemed, by comparison, she seemed a little quiet and mopey.
Yeah, she wasn't very charismatic. Usually when you have like a 80s party horror type movie, there has to be some sort of charisma or charm to the leading character in order for you to get behind on them surviving and saving everyone, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where the budget kind of falls into place, that it's a very small budget, so you're going to have obvious issues with editing and pacing and stuff. But the acting, it's weird because it almost seems like she's supported by actresses and actors that are better than her.
Yeah.
So it's almost kind of a curious reason as to why they picked Lindsay Crane. Not that she's that awful, but.
Right. But yes, I completely agree with what you just said. And, there's other characters who really pick up after the kind of halfway through the movie, like the goth girl almost has no lines until pretty much the middle of the movie, and then she actually does bring her goth background into the story, because of course she's going to know about the sigils and the pentagrams and the monsters.
In a way, it kind of felt like she took over as the lead.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like a shifting of gears.
Yeah, that was a little strange, wasn't it?
I liked Gary's introduction. Well, it's like he's just like, "Hey, who are you? I'm Gary."
And then they would say, "Oh, nice to meet you, Garrett," or they would always call him by the wrong name.
Yeah.
And the German girl was funny too. The German girl who can understand English but can't speak it.
Yeah. Such a common problem.
Yeah, she's like R2D2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good one. That's kind of a tropey thing there. But yeah, it was fun. I mean, I had a lot of fun watching it. And some things in the movie reminded me of other movies. Like, for example, there's at one point, of course, someone pulls out a chainsaw, and it reminds me of Ash, Bruce Campbell.
Oh yeah,
in the Evil Dead
her,
movies.
I was expecting her to say groovy.
Yeah, it was
Because, of
definitely
course, these are completely supernatural monsters, but they still have an anatomy that can be dismembered, and apparently they can be killed and bleed. So there's that. And it reminded me also when Sophie is holding the chainsaw covered in blood, it reminded me of the poster for Wreck 2. Have you ever seen that one, David? The one about zombies, Spanish movie.
Paco Plaza.
Yeah, like the bride that has to fight zombies with a chainsaw and she's covered in blood.
Yeah.
That reminded me of that image. So yeah, really interesting development. Almost like kind of a British Joss Whedon. I got a lot of big Buffy the Vampire Slayer out of this movie.
It reminded me a little bit of Dead Alive too. The way that the monsters would descend on people and then guts would start like flying up in the air and.
Yeah, people getting ripped in half and their bodies thrown everywhere.
Yeah.
You mean the big slaughter scene that they?
That big guy, what was he, the Wendigo or something? He had he seemed like he had the biggest body count, like right in the beginning, kind of the opening monster scene.
Yeah, he just kind of slaughters the whole party.
Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of most of the characters at once, so you know who the important ones are.
Yeah, again, that's good budget work there. You pay them as extras because they're not sticking around that long.
I have to say, there's a section when two cops show up in the movie. And that monster with the plague doctor mask, the one with the big beak.
Yeah.
And he has like these two sides. Yeah, the sickles, yeah. And I was very impressed by the shot where a leg is cut off from one of the policemen and thrown onto the hood of the patrol car. Yeah. And the leg actually wobbles like flesh when it hits.
It looks heavy.
Yeah, it looked heavy and hefty and meaty. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can see that thing kind of wobble when it hits. And I was like, whoa, at least it doesn't look like a mannequin leg that someone just threw there and goes like clunk,
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, good job on that. That's probably like good silicone special effects there. And the cops were completely useless, though. I mean,
and then I was a little disappointed when he scraped his sickle on the car to make sparks to blow up the car.
Yeah.
That seemed a little, I mean, I don't know. That just seemed like it was a little too fast and too convenient.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the monster would blow up along with the car. I didn't want to bring that up, of course.
Yeah, I mean, they were able to cut him up with chainsaws.
Blowing up his weak spot.
Right. Good point. Yes.
I wanted to see them explode
video
pixel
game
by
logic.
Yeah, they should explode pixel by pixel.
Yeah.
So they discover, like you said, that the mom who gets killed in the beginning of the movie is a monster hunter, and there's this secret section in the farm where Sophie lives that has a bunch of weapons, and that's what they use to basically go back into the house and get rid of the other monsters.
But she died because she was fighting a monster, trying to fight that monster with a pocket knife.
Yeah.
But there's some really decent special effects in this. The monster in the bathroom that's all made out of torsos and parts of other bodies.
It looked like the Guar's flesh column.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the artwork in the tome that they read from. The book, the Necronomicon style book. The artwork in that thing is fantastic as well.
It kind of amazed me that when you saw the book later, it just looked like a bunch of like scribbling in another language and a bunch of pictures of pentagrams and stuff and drawings of monsters. But when she's reading it, it was like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
So without trying to spoil the ending too much, but I kind of saw that Sophie was going to be a central character in there, and I kind of saw that there was a reason why the monsters weren't going after her particularly. Yeah. So I did see that part coming, but poor Nicholas Vince, man, he appears at the end and his face is just So he kind of bookends the movie, right? He shows up a little bit in the beginning and then he shows up at the end, and it was really fun to see Nicholas Vince show up in a movie like this, which is almost a full feature film, right? It was like an hour and 20 minutes.
I want to see the bonus features of Sophie trying to explain to her dad what happened at the house.
Yeah. My guess is that he probably knows something, right? You can't be married to a monster slayer and not know, right?
But he did. He put his
Right.
daughter in a mental institution for a year after that.
Yeah. Maybe to make her forget. Maybe that's, if they made a sequel, that's what it would be, is that he tried to repress those memories to keep her from following that lineage or something. You know,
yeah.
That kind of seems apt for that kind of story, but
But the only thing that I thought was a little, I don't want to use the word contrived, but the only thing I thought was a little forced, well, that just means contrived as well. But maybe we should cut that out. It's just that it seemed like you didn't need to have a lot of special skills to be able to kill monsters. All you need to do is just hack at them with an axe, and then you'll just kill them anyway. You know, that's I only expected that to be like, maybe the weapons would have been something like special or enchanted, or, you know, something like that. Because it seems like if a teenager with an axe can just destroy this monster who killed like 10 people, why do you have to have special training to be a monster hunter? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of like a big gap in the logic of all of it, in that they set it up for either Sophie or for the weapons and the way that they reveal it, which I think is more of just a nod of the towards the Evil Dead movies, you know, with Ash having his shack in the back of the house.
Mm-hmm.
But they certainly make it seem like there's going to be something bigger there, but it never goes that way. Which they certainly could have done something, you know, given the runtime of the film, they could have added a little bit more. But who knows if that was something on the chopping block as far as, you know, budget and story and everything goes.
Right,
Also
of
sort
course.
a shortcut to that shack, right? That I didn't. They went through some air ducts and then they ended up in the shack. And then was that underground? Because Sophie said that she didn't think there was anything there on, you know, when they looked at the map in the book and like, oh, this, this is where the shack is with the weapons or whatever. And
Yeah, I think that's analyzing it a little too far. I think they didn't like, you go through the air ducts just to have that cool shot of them like, hey, which way should we go? And then the monster pulls someone back through the duct and all that.
Yeah.
That's just kind of reminded me a little bit of the Aliens movie.
Yeah.
You know, when they're trying to escape the aliens in the air ducts, and, you know, the alien is coming, and it's, you know, Gorman and Vasquez are, you know, they blow up the grenade, and it's like, yeah, that's cool. But I think, yeah, the only thing I understand. I mean, let's face it, $76,000 is not a lot of money to make a full feature film. So they did really good with the budget that they had. And yeah, I think the movie, if I can say a good thing about the movie, is that there's a lot of action. You never get bored with it. It really has a good pace. I just wish that one of the things that just particularly bothered me, and I don't want to be too picky, but it was the lighting. I thought the lighting could have been better in certain shots, because when they're in the forest, you have these huge bright floodlights, you know, off to the sides, and it's like, it's just so bright in the forest. I feel like that could have been a little darker. The lighting inside the house looks very TV sitcom. It's very flat, very even lighting. They could have made it a little more moody. That's the only complaint I had in the movie, was the lighting, and the main protagonist being a little too demure or too not charismatic enough, you know. But maybe that's just the way her character was written, because she is kind of bullied. So, you know, if you knew people who were bullied, they always tend to be like, you know, take the second, withdrawn, and not too. They don't put themselves out there too much.
Yeah, because they don't want to draw attention.
Yeah.
One thing I will say about the lighting at nighttime, I will applaud them for doing it, only because I watch a lot of these, you know, micro-budget horror films, the direct-to-VOD stuff, and I got to say, typically when they shoot nighttime stuff, they usually just do it during the daytime and then have someone in post darken the image to make it look like night, and then they have to brighten certain spots so you know where key things are. So, I mean, I guess it's kind of like, oh, you know, I'll give it to them for the ambition of it. You know, could it have been better? Most definitely, but I guess it's better than, you know, post-production conversion.
True. They escaped that whole daytime as nighttime with the big blue vignette over everything.
Yeah.
So that was fun. That was a fun movie. It's empowering. I mean, if you're a kid and you like gore and you like splatter movies and stuff like that, this will definitely be a fun experience for you.
Yeah.
I gotta say, Sophie won me over though. because I thought it was more like a coming of age kind of story for that character. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Literally,
And I really liked her. She won me over though with her line, "This is my party. Let's kill some fucking monsters."
Yeah.
That kind of won me over. So I don't know. That's just me.
It's my party, and I'll kill monsters if I want to.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a cool moment. Yeah, like you said, that was a fun, and it is literally coming of age, because in Europe, most countries, you become an adult when you're 18.
Yeah, and monsters apparently recognize that too as the age of being an adult.
Yep.
Yeah. And I will say, same as earlier when I talked about, recommending Border, I will recommend that there is a good double feature with this movie. So if you're interested in watching this movie, do a double feature with There's Nothing Out There. Vinegar Syndrome recently put it out on Blu-ray. It's a way better transfer than the movie even deserves, but it's still a fun movie that's very similar in vein to this. And this movie itself, it's not like a great movie. It's not, the next The Thing or anything like that, but
Yeah.
it's certainly made for fans that buy, Vinegar Syndrome and like Severin Blu-rays, that kind of stuff. And I feel like this is something that crowd kind of really needs to see. And like I said, double pair it with There's Nothing Out There. You'll have a blast.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Is that like a movie from like the 90s or something?
Yeah, that was late 80s, early 90s. It was a shot-on-video movie. I believe Troma originally put it out for distribution.
Nice.
But it's about these teenagers trapped in a house, and there's an alien that falls from the sky that is attacking them in the house.
Oh, I love that. I looked it up. The cover for this is great. So
Yeah,
really fun.
It's a really good. I'd say comedy horror. I think it puts comedy a little bit before the horror, but it's a fun one for sure.
I like these movies where like spring breakers come to terms with like monsters or aliens invading, and it's always a fun thing.
Did it have a scene where somebody comes back in from outside and they are standing in the open doorway and they go, "There's nothing out there," and then somebody gets then they get hauled out the door?
Hey, Hellraiser does that. Hey, Hellraiser does that when Kirsty opens the door with her boyfriend, and then all of a sudden the engineer comes out.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So really cool. Really cool. So yeah, watch it because it's a British production. It's got a lot of heart into it, and Nicholas Vince is in it. So go check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And we got some feedback, Raul, that we were talking about before, that's been helping us with the with transcribing episodes. He said, "Oh, by the way, I finally listened to the Cold Heart Canyon episode. You guys should invite Dr. Sorka more often for long chats. I enjoyed it a lot. One thing that went unmentioned about the book, do you remember Todd's bodyguard in the first sections? He dies in a car accident. It seemed like something that could have been developed into a ghost story. But once he dies, there's no mention again of this character." And you know what? And actually, when I was reading it, I thought of that. I thought, is he going to come back as one of the ghosts in the zoo? But then by the time we got to talking about it, I didn't write it down, and I didn't remember to talk about it.
So yes, I think I know what you're talking about, because Todd Pickett's bodyguard does drive off a corner in the canyon or something, and his car goes. And then it feels like, I don't remember exactly how that chapter ends, but it seems like there's kind of like this long, I got the feeling that they was going to segue into something else in the next chapter, and it didn't. Yeah. Because they talk something about the canyon, like the silence of the canyon or whatever, and I thought, oh, is there going to be a ghost rising from that or something? Yeah. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, there's some moments in the book that seem a little disconnected. It seems like something else was going to go follow up that, and then it doesn't. Like the whole scene, for example, with the dog. It seems like it's kind of dumped in there a little bit. But well, I don't want to say dumped, but yeah. So I understand. Yeah, that's a good point. I also thought that, Raul. Good point.
And on the site, we had an April Fool's joke that, I don't know, I put this up there. You know how Imagica in 1995 they made a paperback that was broken up into two books, right? Imagica 1 and Imagica 2. So the premise of my practical joke was, hey, there was a sequel to Imagica that was a short-lived paperback only version, but now they've announced Imagica 3 is coming out in I think 2020. Yes. And so I thought, so it was a sort of a two-pronged joke, because one part is that, there was a sequel, and then the other part is now part 3 is coming out. And I thought for sure nobody's going to fall for this. This is just going to be an easygoing, practical joke this year. But they did. I had a lot of people explaining to me why. No, that's not a sequel, dude. You say you're a Clive Barker fan and you don't even know that's not a sequel. That's just a part 2 of the book.
They were being that.
They cut deep on that.
Jeez. Yeah. One guy was like, "Get a load of this guy who thinks he's a Clive Barker fan."
Yikes.
He doesn't even know that's. And then one other guy said, like, "F you, I shared this," when he found out it was an April Fool's joke. And
oh my God!
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, some of our April Fool's jokes have caused some people to get to do phone calls and stuff. Like, wasn't there one time we got a message from the Clive Barker people saying, "Hey, what did you guys announce?" It's like we got an editor talking to us that, "Hey, whoa, I forgot what it was."
Yeah, St. Martin's Press.
That was the Scarlet Gospels one where it was going to be canceled for a year.
Yeah, it was put off for one more year. St. Martin's Press called Seraphim, and Seraphim called us, and they said, "Hey, what's your source on this? Because they're saying that we're the source, and we're not the source. Where'd you get this from?" And we're like, "Dude, look at the date. It's April 1st. This was a joke."
I keep seeing people commenting stuff on April Fool jokes. Sometimes you think they're going to be really obvious. Like one time it was Gmail was going to start having Gmail paper, where they're going to mail you your emails in paper and stuff like that. And and some people get really upset. They're like, "Oh man, I think I'm not going to open up my computer again on April Fool's, because it just becomes like a terrible day to look at news and stuff. I never know what's real and what's not." I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's pretty easy to spot.
Yeah, you can use logic. Yeah. It's okay.
It's okay. Just think about it. Common sense.
I thought Imagica 3 was a pretty big softball this year. I didn't really expect people to,
Well, I'll be honest. For like 2 seconds, I actually was interested in the article, because you made that without telling any of us, and I opened up the computer and I saw Imagica 3.
Yeah, I remember you posted saying you were going to do it. Yeah, during your lunch break or something like that.
I did go like, Imagica 3? Oh, okay, it's April Fool's. All right, got it. But a little part of my brain kind of lit up a little light bulb saying, "Bing!" Like, what? Imagica 3? Huh? Yeah. So for a second, I was like briefly intrigued.
That's what David Anderson said too. He said that he that fooled him for about 2 seconds until he thought about it.
Right on. Yeah. So good job, Ryan. You got some people there really upset at it, but
yay, we made people mad.
Yeah.
That's always fun. Did you guys do anything on your podcast, David?
No, we usually tend not to. I think we make enough people mad with some of our reviews, so we're good on that.
Oh man.
Right on. What do you guys got coming up for future episodes there?
I think for our next one, we are going to be covering Shazam and Hellboy, and I think the other one's still undecided.
Yeah, Jose, you said that you were talking about how all the reviews for Hellboy have been terrible.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything yet, and I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen like all these articles. It's like 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, which seems unfair. I don't know, but yeah. So
I will say that I've seen it, and it's not 13% bad.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, and did you guys see the trailer for the last chapter of the Star Wars trilogy?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
I know this is the Clive Barker podcast, but now we're just talking about other movies. But
the last chapter, Star Wars?
Yeah, Star Wars.
Yeah, and it's got Emperor Palpatine on there.
Yeah.
That was amazing. That really sent chills down my spine. I didn't expect that.
And right before the announcement, there were people trying to say that the title of the movie was going to be The Will of the Force, and that's like some dude's fan movie.
Yeah, I fell for that.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
I did. Briefly, yeah. I was like, The Will of the Force? Oh, that sounds like a weird title, but okay.
Although, I have to admit that Rise of the irritates me when I see that in a title. Like Rise of the Silver Surfer. It's like, what, were they lying down and then they get up?
Uh-huh. And have you noticed that it's Return, Revenge, and Rise?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like, there's...
Just a theme, I guess, they go for.
Yeah. So I don't know what to think about the trailer, but it seems like Rise of Skywalker. It's a little awkward in terms of title, but I wonder if they're going to retcon Rey's lineage again, or if it's going to be...
Yeah.
I read this interesting theory that says maybe they're going to bring back the Jedi, but now they're going to be called Skywalkers, which would be an interesting thing if they did it. I don't know.
Hey, look at me, I'm a Skywalker.
Yeah. Hey, who knows?
No. Hey, this is the Duels of Blood started working. The voting started working. So I wonder if my website moved itself to Pacific Standard Time instead of Alaska time.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, as long as it works, that's fine.
You got it. So get voting. Get cracking on those little clicking buttons and, once every 12 hours. So I think that's pretty decent. I mean, that's pretty...
we may end up having votes in the single digits, but at least this way, Devil Loot gets a fighting chance.
Yeah, quality, not quantity, right?
Yeah.
All right.
And so next episode, I think we're going to be discussing making commentary tracks for Sabrina on Netflix. So it's going to be episodes 5 and 6, right?
Yep. And then we'll come back to the Duels of Blood again. And we got to start reading Abarat Days of Magic, Nights of War, because that's probably going to come up sooner than we're prepared for otherwise. So, we'll be talking about that one too.
So everything goes well. By the time we hit summer, we'll be finishing editing on that interview book, and it'll be coming out for everybody who's purchased a copy through our Kickstarter. We didn't forget about you guys. We're really just on the final stretch, right, Ryan?
Yeah. I spent like an hour on one a couple of days ago transcribing. I got through 7 minutes, and I didn't even get to the interview part. I was so mad. I'm like, why did we make this episode like this? We had news before the interview, and not only that, but there was a bunch of like late breaking news. So I in the introduction, I had a bunch of minutes of just me adding news to the news.
Right, yeah.
So I'm like, why am I even transcribing this? It's like, because I guess because we want to have something good at the end, even though it's not part that we'll use for the book.
Yeah. Maybe we can add some of those news sections if they're transcribed. Maybe we can add those to the blog post retroactively, so people who are hearing disabled can actually read some of that stuff.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Either we have a link to another page that has the transcription, or we just post it right into the blog post.
Yeah, that would be an interesting idea.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have all of those, so we might as well, use them for the website too.
And that's pretty much it that we have in store for the next few episodes, right?
Yeah. And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end. You can find the show notes for this episode and join the discussion over at www.clivebarkercast.com, where we have news, features, reviews, and links to all the ways you can connect with us. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts and every other place you can find podcasts. Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and news blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans.
Thanks for listening.